Hello everybody. Today we are going to be talking about the god that I most resemble, Hercules. I gotta cut this. Anyway, we're talking about Hercules today, and we're gonna go ahead and get right into this build, if we can find it. There it is. So, for your starter items, you have the option of Watcher's Gift or Death Toll. Hercules, I would go Death Toll, honestly. Warrior support, very good at doing damage. Hercules, like the king of damage of the warrior support, especially early game when your base numbers are really huge, especially in your driving strike, which is real one. Moving into your first real item, you're definitely going to want Midas Boots. Hercules can fall very far behind very quick. If you don't get Midas Boots, you're just going to find yourself way behind the other support, even if you were ahead early. Just part of the kit of Hercules, his lack of rotation, kind of nonsense. Looking at your core items, Hide of the Urchin is great on Hercules. You have a mana problem. That gives you some mana, also gives you the tankiness to everything. Wonderful item on warrior support. Then, of course, looking at your main core item, Sovereignty and Magi's Blessing. Typically got in that order, Hide, Sovereignty, Magi's. If you have to, you can get Sov first, then Hide, then Magi's, but you want to get Hide earlier if you can to build your stacks up. If you're going to get a damage item, the only one you should really be concerned about is a Jotun's Wrath. That being for the 25% cooldown, it's going to help you get off your 1 and your 2 more often, that being your pull and your stun, so you have more crowd control in the fights helping out your team. Defensive items are, of course, Situational, Bulwark of Hope. They have a lot of magical damage. Pestilence because they have healing. Mid-Guardian Mail, they have a lot of attack speed. Shifter Shield's actually not a bad item on Hercules. You kind of build Herc, sometimes like a Fenrir. If you remember Aurora's old build, sometimes you get the Shifter Shield in there because it's a pretty good damage defense hybrid. As far as actives go, Hog, of course, then situationally between Shell, Weakening, Blink, depending on the given circumstance. And of course your consumables laid out nicely just so you can get to them easier within the base. Looking at our abilities here, Hercules has a really good passive actually for early game aggression, which is that as you take damage, you get more physical power. Doesn't really matter so much on your skills necessarily, but on your in-hand auto attacks, that's going to be a big deal. Very useful in game. Good to fight early on Hercules if you get a chance. Driving Strike, which is your main damage skill, your getaway skill, I guess, on Hercules. Your initiation skill, a lot of stuff. Driving Strike does a lot of damage, has great scaling, and is also a pretty solid stun, 1.5 seconds at the end. Medium cooldown, 14 seconds. Power cost isn't too bad, but you have very low base mana, so that's going to be kind of a problem. This is the skill you're going to rank up first, unless you're roaming in the jungle level 1 with your team, in which case you might get Earthbreaker. This is your pull. Basically a bunch of rocks got in front of you. You have a little area at the end. It'll pull a character to you if you hit them in that area. Other than maybe getting it at level 1, you're pretty much going to put 1 point into the skill level 2, and then you're not going to get it again until the end of the game. Leveling up your Driving Strike being your 1 first, then your Mitigate Wounds, and of course your ultimate every time that you can. The Earthbreaker damage scaling isn't good enough to warrant getting it over your Mitigate Wounds. Mitigate Wounds, one of the best skills in the game towards the end game, gives you a base healing per tick. Also returns damage that you took over the length of the skill. So basically, you pop the skill, you take damage within the next 4 seconds, it doesn't matter how much you take, and then over the next 10 seconds, you're going to start regenning up to 90% of the damage that you took. This is really good endgame. It's what makes solo lane Hercules so detrimental at the end of the game. If you don't kill him in that time, he's going to completely full heal. Really disgusting, really good. Excavate, a really great skill, actually kind of underrated in terms of support skills, because it does so much base damage that this skill won't be useful throughout the whole game, especially because you can hit somebody with it. It can hit a barrier and then fly back and hit him again for half damage. You can do a lot of damage with this skill, especially early game. You can hit multiple targets. Very good disorienting in a team fight. So let's go ahead and get ourselves... No, we're not. We're going to talk about this really quick. I always forget this, but I didn't forget it this time. So, who do you really want to play Hercules with? Well, preferably you want to lane with an Anher, like an aggressive ADC, you know, somebody that has a lot of early game pressure, that has a stun, so you can look for a kill early game. Who don't you really want to lane with? Like an Apollo. Yeah, you know, Apollo kind of turns on later game, like a Rama. Rama kind of turns on a little bit towards the later part of the game. You want an aggressive ADC to help you get a lot of damage off. Who is he good against in terms of supports? Geb, Ymir, characters that don't really have a getaway where you can pull them, stun them back into your creeps. Your creeps can attack them, and you get a lot of damage off on them looking for an early game kill. As far as somebody you wouldn't want to really go against, a Sylvanas, he's going to have a lot of lane clear against you, and it's going to suck. Ares, actually, unfortunate to go against. If Ares gets his chains on you, you can't use your driving strike, which is your damage and your stun and all of your shit. So you really don't want to be put in that predicament. So let's go ahead and get ourselves into this game. Put out one ward here at the start of the game at the mid Harpies, and we are using the cognitive strategy of grabbing the speed buff first into the blue buff. This does a couple things. It prevents your speed buff from getting stolen from the opposing side. It also gives you a pretty solid bit of experience for this side. The chaos side of the map having the quote-unquote better starting side because you can do the Incon start, which is where you do mid Harpy to back Harpy to blue buff. But this will allow us to get a solid bit of XP, in fact more XP if they don't use that particular start. No worries right here. We're just trying to clear the wave as fast as we can. We cleared the wave pretty fast, and now we can start to put the hurt onto them. They do have an Apollo, and he does a lot of damage, but we also have Kiki and a Hercules, so we're going to put as much pressure as we can. We are getting fairly low, but we're making sure to pop our potions. I try to grab the Apollo, and it does not grab him, which is weird, but I can finish up this kill on the Apollo. Kiki jumps in to take the kill, and now we have the Geb extremely low in the back line. Kiki looking to pick up a kill, gets the archers on him, so he has to be careful, but the Geb cannot finish him off. And we get an early first blood onto a Bastet, which is going to be quite a problem for the enemy team. I really want to pull on this Geb. I've got to be kind of careful, though. The tower will do a lot of damage to me. I'm only level 3. But if he does come up into the wrong position, I can pull him and stun him. So that's what I'm looking for. I do indeed grab him, stun him back into the tower, pick up the kill. Almost die myself, but honestly, it would have been worth it regardless. But I don't die anyway, which means not only did Kiki get an early kill, but I got an early kill, and now this lane can snowball out of control, really. Kiki, of course, wanted that kill, calling me a hater, but that's alright. It brushes right off. I don't feel anything. The Apollo doing a good job actually staying up in levels. The problem will be that his support is really far behind. Only being level 2 at this point, he's not going to be able to really do a rotate for a mid-Harpy. He's just going to be in a very bad position. Looking for some more damage, seeing what we can do, but we see Wilix is over here in the left lane already, having to make an early rotation to us because of the early double kill that we got over in this lane. But that's alright, we can just kind of play back. We see her back in the middle lane, so we are all good. Kiki's about to be level 5, which means I can go ahead and pull this Geb, stun him into the wall, and Kiki will have his ultimate. I hit both of them with my Hercules ult, doing tons of damage. Realistically, I didn't need to follow this Geb. The cats were going to kill him anyway, but I wanted to make sure that we had the kill secured. Kiki finishes off the Apollo, and there's a very good rotation from Mace to the face on an Anubis over to this lane, and he will grab an early kill onto me. But not a big deal. We have now killed this duo lane twice, meaning that we are 3 kills up on them. Their return kill was onto me, the support, and Kiki has now got 3 kills, and he's going to be extremely far ahead of this lane. Also getting the first blood, putting in quite a bit of gold ahead of the enemy Apollo. This is kind of what you're looking to do on Hercules. You want to try your best to practice your skills. If you can land your driving strike 2 combo, not only does it do a lot of damage early, but it's a ton of CC, and it can really put the enemy out of position, especially for characters like Geb that don't have a guaranteed way to get out, such as, Geb only has rollout, which is great and all, but you can't really guarantee to get out from that. The Apollo making a smart move here to ulti out. If he didn't, I was just going to pull him and smack him back into us, and he would have been dead. But he makes a good decision to ulti out, so I couldn't CC him. The Apollo is fairly low, though, so we can try to perhaps make an opportunity to look for their blue buff with just the Geb here, but we also don't want to lose out on this lane XP. I did die at an inopportune time, so I did not get to rotate towards the mid-Harpy, but honestly, it's not a big deal with how far of a lead that we have. Their blue buff should be spawning decently soon. You can tell this because they should have gotten their blue buff about the same time that we got our blue buff. They actually did theirs just a little bit later, but that's going to be okay. The Geb does not know we're here, and so he's rotating over. I can look to driving strike him out of his rollout, and now he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Smacking him with the ultimate, Kiki, of course, finishing him off for the kill, and now we can go ahead and attempt to take their blue buff. Hogging it right here, realistically, I should not have hogged that. Should have tried to save my hog. Trying to wait for the Anubis to get out of his ultimate before I use my driving strike, but I did it just a little bit too early. But that's going to be alright. Using his Aegis on Mace, but I can still pick up the kill anyway. Unfortunately, Kiki dies there to the Apollo, but not a big deal. We are getting a lot more out of this trade than they are. Willix is pretty hard to get up to. We're trying to put as much pressure on her as we can. She's fairly hard to kill. A good Geb shield, but it's not going to quite be enough, as I will be able to pick her up, grabbing another kill for myself, putting me fairly far ahead as well. And I'll be able to get not only my Midas boots pretty soon, but a tier 3 hog if I wish. Essentially, their whole team has recently died, so I don't have to panic about backing super soon. I can try to make sure to grab some XP. Of course, leveling up the heal to max second here on Hercules. Your grab not going to do you enough good. You'd rather have the extra heal to be extra tanky in these team fights. Grabbing that tier 3 hog and my Midas boots, leaving the base. Could have waited for a 1 ward if I wanted to, but you can look at the map and there's already wards placed out, so I don't necessarily need to grab that ward. Also, my ADC, being a Bastet, has the ability to get away fairly fast and doesn't necessarily need as much vision as, say, a typical ADC would, like Apollo. The blue buff is up, but I want to make sure I'm maximizing my XP. I can always go get that blue buff. I can't necessarily always come and get the wave XP. Also, Kiki's looking to make a play over here on their Apollo, and I want to try to help him. Trying to throw out a boulder to grab the kill, but the Apollo dashes in just the right direction, so I cannot grab it. But that's alright. Kiki will go ahead and grab that himself. Putting some pressure onto this Geb, I hog to get those minions out of my way. Trying to put as much damage on him as I can, but unfortunately Kiki is out of mana. I did not realize, so we cannot pick up that kill. Thinking about attacking this Geb, but Kiki has back. I'm going to try anyway. Don't land the pull, no big deal. I can just go ahead and safely back out of this. The Anubis had died in the mid lane. We killed the Apollo. I had no worries of a rotation coming onto me. The Apollo ultis onto the mid lane, which is good for us. Now we know that Apollo is down. Also means that if we gank him, he cannot ult out. I get put into a situation here where I need to back due to a low amount of health. I do not have any vision onto the gold right now. They could be technically doing the gold, but we see the Apollo over in the ADC lane, and that kind of indicates to us that they're not doing it. Anubis is very good at doing early gold fairies, very high damage. Basically, the gold fairy sits in his skills, and he can land all of that damage. Very, very high base damage on his skills. Bastet also very good at doing an early gold fairy because of her cats. Cat's very effective at destroying objectives, as well as tanking objectives. Actually, that's another aspect of them that's very interesting. They have a lot of base health. At this point, we are about 4,000 gold ahead, as well as quite a bit of XP ahead. I am almost 2 levels ahead of this Geb, Kiki being 2 levels ahead of the Apollo. So we're looking to make a play here onto the Apollo and the Geb. Unfortunately, we get knocked up the second that we come in from the Geb. Very good play by him. I go to ultimate the Geb, and he shields himself, mitigating most of that damage. Another good play by the Geb in this situation. We see the Anubis and the Willix rotating onto us, so we're just going to go ahead and rotate out of here. I do have to be careful. The Anubis will be close enough to come in and try to stun me, so I've got to try to dodge it if I can. Just trying to be a little bit careful. He goes ahead and misses his skill, so I can walk out of it. If he would have landed that stun on me, he probably could have just ultied me and killed me. But I do get put into an awkward situation now where Kiki had to back, and I'm extremely low on health and mana, meaning that they have a relatively free gold fury that I cannot contest. Xing attempts to go in and do something, but we just don't have enough pressure around the map. Kiki actually gets teleport to ward, and he ports in behind them over in the left lane, picking up a kill onto Grishang, forcing the Apollo. Well, at this point, he is huge and just absolutely massive. I see the chalk porting in from the blue buff, so I have to kind of get out of that situation. Kiki picks up another kill onto the Geb. At this point, the fight is still happening up north, and I don't really, I can't really help because I'm too low, but at the same time, I don't want to back and miss out on all of this XP. So I can safely grab this experience, grab this gold, no big deal, while my team can clean up that fight. Chalk picking up a kill on Wolfie, that's no big deal. Kiki will return that onto him. Trying to do as much as I can. The Apollo has shown up, but that's alright. I can use my ultimate to secure this blue buff. I also hit the Apollo with it. Shing attempting to get a kill onto this Apollo. I cannot help him, I am too low. But I went ahead and stole their blue buff, grabbed a ton of XP from the wave, so I did not miss out on too much of anything. I am almost 3 levels ahead of Geb at this point. Big thing on Hercules is you have to get an early game lead, and you have to maintain it. Hercules has basically 2 paths he can go down. One is really far ahead, the other is really far behind. There's no real in-between on Hercules. You basically get a couple early game kills and get ahead, or you get killed early and you fall behind. Even if you trade even on Herc and nothing really happens, that's a loss for you. You really need to make something happen on Hercules, just due to the nature of your skills doing high base damage, which means they're going to drop off towards the late game. Your utility does come from the stun and the pull, which you keep throughout the whole game, but as people start to get Magi's and whatnot, you become less effective. Overall, one of the weaker late game supports, but one of the strongest early game supports. So you have to really abuse that. Shing getting a good blink fearless onto the Willix, but unfortunately it was just too far up, and I could not get a pull or a stun onto that. At this point, we have a very solid lead, building up to about 5,000 gold at this point. You can start to feel the other team get a bit demoralized. At this point, it's one of those things where you're trying to put the game away, right? So I know that I am an early game character. I know that this game, if it goes super late, we could be in trouble. They do have a couple of very strong late game characters, being Gab and Apollo. Their dual lane, a very strong late game duo. But at this point, we have gotten Kiki so far ahead from this lane that there's really nothing that they can do about it. They 4-man group up onto Shing, and they grab a kill on him. I'm looking to get a kill onto Mace, but I can't quite throw my boulder into the right spot due to the wall, so we won't be able to grab a kill on him. The Gab extremely low. We grab a kill onto him, trying to body block for Wolfie as much as I can. I can't grab him or give him a shell because I was silenced from the chalk, but that is okay. We can go ahead and clean this up. Bada bing, bada boom. No big deal, no harm, no foul. In terms of XP right now, we are ginormous. I've got 2 on their opposing support. Kiki has 3 on their ADC. Our mid has 2, our solo lane has 2, and our jungler has 3. People underestimate the power of experience in terms of fighting the other team. When you have that early XP lead, you really need to force it. Gold is great. 5k gold lead's a pretty huge lead, but also the experience lead is a much bigger carrying scenario where you can use it to forcefully do whatever you want. This game is pretty much coming to a close. You can start to sense it in ranked games when teams are getting sad and demoralized. When they're kind of like, I don't want to do this anymore. They'll start to play a little bit differently. You can start to kind of feel it out. In one last attempt to fight, they go in the back lines in their own, trying to just pick off anybody that they can. They really want to try to get a couple of kills, but they're just like, this is not working. Kiki is just too big, doing way too much damage. The hell has gotten too big, the healing will be too much, and they are going to go ahead and surrender this game, which is exactly what we wanted on our Hercules. Let's get into this one. We had a relatively quick game, but that is the best case scenario here on Herc, as Herc does drop off towards the later parts of the game, so you really want to abuse your early game, doing a pretty good amount of damage, actually doing more damage than Wolfie there in the mid lane. None of the numbers are too crazy because of how short the game was, but that's kind of the point with Herc, is try to get your team ahead early, get your ADC ahead. In this case, Kiki was 11-1. Get him ahead early so you can put the game away. Don't even want to deal with that end game. Looking at our build, we did the Death Toll for the early game damage into our Midas Boots, working our way into a Hide of Urchin, then would have gone in order to Sovereignty and Magi's and perhaps a Jotun's Wrath or another situational item. Grabbing Shell, would have grabbed that to tier 3 Shell for the protections as well as the tier 3 Hug. Thank you guys for watching the video. I did this Hercules video because you guys requested it. Next will be Neja because you guys requested that as well. If you enjoy my stuff, you can follow me on Twitch/Runzelman. I stream Monday through Friday in the mornings through the afternoon. Have a twitching day, y'all.